Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Mr. J. This is W.A.D. MTG. It occurred to me that I haven't really did an introduction to the channel yet. So I'm going to go ahead and get that out the way, and then I'll get to my main topic. So originally this channel years ago was like a parkour free running workout channel that I started when I got into that, I don't know, maybe 12 years ago or something like that. I was a professional athlete till 31. I retired right around the time of my 32nd birthday from semi-pro football. So I was doing, that was only like 7.5, 8 years ago. I've been a driver ever since. So the channel started before then when I was doing PK and free running, and then it turned into not that. It turned into like an occultic channel because along my life, I dated a witch, right? And she opened my world into occultism. And my foundations was in like Judeo-Christian theology and religion. I was a Sunday school teacher early when I was a teenager. And that turned into an obsession with occultism after I dated this chick that was a witch, right? And so I learned a lot, and I did a lot of videos. I started practicing. I studied just countless thousands of hours of study and theology and philosophy and mystery religions and ancient societies from all over the world and their practices and paganism and traditional witchcraft, etc., 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 etc. So I know a little bit about having sympathy for the devil, okay? Because I have some sympathy for the devil, or the story of how Lucifer fell. I have some sympathy for how that went down. So I know a little bit about playing both sides, right? I know a little bit about playing both sides. So I'm going to get to talking about how Wotc in the command zone is playing both sides, how they're playing the devil's advocate and having some sympathy for the devil. All right, so over the last couple weeks, we've been hit with all kinds of different announcements, right? For as commander players and magic players, we've been hit with the recent bannings, right? The bannings of Jeweled Lotus, Mana Crypt, Dockside Extortionist, and Nadu. Nadu we really don't care so much about because we knew that card was broken to begin with. And Gavin Verhey came out and said himself on the podcast with Aaron Forsythe that he believed that Jeweled Lotus was a mistake, right? Printing Jeweled Lotus was a mistake. So he also said that he thought, what's it called? Nadu was a mistake as well, right? So it was a mistake in design. They originally designed it to be something else with flash, give creatures flash, and then it was supposed to have the same ability, but it was only supposed to trigger once per turn for each creature, and only when your opponents targeted your creatures. So they thought that was going to be too powerful, so they turned it into twice per turn for all your creatures, and no flash, no giving out flash, etc., etc. So on to other things, right? The sympathy for the devil and then playing the devil's advocate. So we all know, as we've had a couple weeks to kind of digest this stuff and have conversations and talks with other people in the community and watch all these videos online and stuff, we know that there was harassment and threats and all this kind of stuff, right? And I've touched on it already in previous videos. Now that I've turned this channel from a workout channel to an occultic channel to a Magic the Gathering channel instead of a real Magic channel, that's what we're talking about now. So we've talked about this stuff already, and I'm just touching back on it. So they have sympathy for the devil. They're playing the devil's advocate. So in a recent video, the Command Zone did a recent video. Now, I've got all the respect in the world for these guys. I like these guys. Josh Lee Kwai is a class act. Jimmy Wong, he's one of my favorite players in all of Magic. I really like his style. And then obviously we got Rachel Weeks. That I don't particularly mind Rachel at all. I just get these Charlton Heston vibes because Rachel Weeks is made out of people, right? Like, damn yous, Rachel, damn yous all to hell. You know, she she just always wins. She always wins. You guys let her win. Hi, baby. Say hi. Hi, baby dog. Yeah, hi, dog. She always wins. And she flies under the radar. And everybody just kind of lets her fly under the radar, and nobody knows why. And I'm just kind of jealous of Rachel for some reason, because she has this uncanny ability to look like she's not the threat when she clearly is the threat. And so, you know, I got these Charlton Heston vibes with Rachel, but I like her. I like everybody in the command zone. I respect everybody there. But about the threats and the harassment and all this stuff, you know, they're probably getting it too, right? Because Rachel and Josh are members of the CAG, or they were members of the CAG. So they're getting harassment and shit too. And, you know, they've got one of the biggest channels in all of Magic. So they got to do some damage control. So in their damage control, they just did another video recently, you know, after they've had time to absorb everything and take everything in, and they've got this organized fashion where they got outlines and they've got writers and they know what they're going to talk about and they hit all these points. And well, they went through in their recent video and it basically said that Wizards knew. And people will be like, oh, of course they fucking knew, right? Of course they knew. And they advised against it. Well, why did they advise against it? Could it be because of Commander Legends and the printing of Jewel Lotus? Could it be because the reprinting of Jewel Lotus and Commander Masters last year? Could it be because the reprinting of Mana Crypt and Ixalan that everybody's been talking about? Of fucking course it is. Of course it's about that. Of course it's about the reprinting of Dockside and Modern Masters 2022. Of course it's about that. They lost a ton of money in reprint equity. And I've already mentioned this before too. Just in the published decks on EDH Rec, just the cards that were in the published decks in EDH Rec that got banned, it's over $127 million out of the Magic economy. And that's just a smaller percentage, right? Like, only serious players are vested enough in Magic to, you know, publish a deck on EDH Rec. I'm really invested in Magic. I've been playing Magic since 2007. And I don't have any decks published on the EDH Rec. As a matter of fact, that was one of the videos I was going to do on this channel. It's going to be like a segue. I'm going to call it W.A.D. for Wild Ass Decks. This is W.A.D. MTG. So I'm going to start doing some deck videos and covering some of my decks when I get the opportunity. I've also got some gameplay videos that I was going to do another segue, Cross Country Commander, because I kind of have this unique ability, being how I'm a truck driver and I drive all over the country, to travel around the country to all these different cities. I've been everywhere more times than I can count. And when I stop for the weekend, like I am right now, like an hour and a half or so north of Nashville right now on the edge of southern Kentucky. But I have these opportunities to play games with people at their LGS in the areas that's close to where I park for the weekend. I park for my 34-hour reset. And I oftentimes will drop my trailer, load my trailer up, and drive my truck over there to an LGS or near an LGS and go in there and play with guys. But that's something that's for the future. For right now, you know, that's for the future. I don't have my process refined yet on how I want to record games and how I want to have them shown. And to touch back on why I'm jealous of Rachel, right? Like, I go to these places and I'm starting to develop a repertoire with some players in different areas across the country. But generally, when I walk in, I'm a complete stranger. Nobody knows who I am. This channel doesn't have a lot of like followers, right? All my followers and stuff on this channel, all my subs on this channel were from when it was a parkour workout channel or an occultic, like, real Magic channel. So now that I'm about MTG, my videos are getting, you know, just a handful of views, and I'm looking to build out from there, and that's one of the ways I'm trying to build out. But, you know, so I get targeted is what I mean. I get targeted by all these people a lot. So my gameplay videos aren't up to snuff yet, right? You know, I go and I play with these guys and I sit down at the table and I'm playing with a group of like already, you know, friends that already have like a repertoire, that play with each other, that know what their decks do. And I play with higher power decks, so I sit down and I often get bullied. So it's not the balanced environment that I want to portray in a gameplay video. So it's something I'm trying to refine, and it's, you know, one of the reasons why I'm like Charlton Heston. I get these Charlton Heston vibes over Rachel Weeks. So anyways, I'm rambling a bit. I don't have writers, right? Like, this is off the cuff, so I'm just kind of going. But they're playing the devil's advocate, right? So back on that, in their new video, they has said that Wotc knew about these bans. Okay, so if Wotc knew about the bans and they had a problem with the bans and they advised the rules committee not to make the bans, why did they ban it anyways? And the ramifications of that. So they're now openly on the command zone, even though these people are their friends, right? These people are their friends. They know these people. They're throwing these people under the bus themselves after condemning the violence and the harassment and the threats, because they're probably still receiving threats and harassment. So to try to get out from under that, they're throwing them under the bus again. The whole reason why they gave Commander 2 or EDH to Commander 2 Wotc was supposedly because it had become too big of an animal, too big of a beast for them to tame and take care of, right? Like on the channel, on the video, Rachel made the comparison to a cat growing up and to be like a tiger, a full-grown tiger or whatever, that, you know, these people can't take care of anymore. So they give it to the corporate overlords, who it's their game, it's their shit. They're the ones who run everything. Why not? It's best for them to run it. And they come in and act like the hero, like I said in that other video. You know, we don't believe in threats of violence, and we had to do what we had to do, and we're going to protect these people. And they don't really give a shit at all. They don't give a shit at all. Because in the video with Gavin Verhey and Aaron Forsythe, they said the same thing, right? They said, well, we told the rules committee not to ban these cards. In the same breath, they're saying, well, these cards were design mistakes, but we told them not to ban these cards because it hurts our reprint equity. So they're kind of toting both sides of the line there, right? They're playing the devil's advocate. They're having sympathy for the devil. They're trying to condemn threats and harassment on one end, and then on the other end, they're saying, hey, it's not our fault. We said not to do this. I told them never to print Jewel Lotus. I told them never to do that. They did it anyway. I told them not to make these bands. They did it anyway. Wizards told them not to make these bands. They did it anyway. So they're just continually throwing these people under the bus, Shout out to Olivia, right? Like, shout out to Olivia for sticking up for us or whatever, right? And trying to say this is a bad idea. Now, maybe eventually they would have tried to ban those cards anyway, like a year or two down the road from now. But they weren't doing it all at once. Was a big shock, right? It's a big shock to the system, big shock to everybody's collections, a big shock to the card shops. So it just became this giant negative thing, and now we've been digesting it for a couple weeks, and playing with the new meta and building new decks and brewing, etc., etc. So, that's kind of where I'm at. I wanted to touch base on who I actually am, where this channel comes from. That I've been playing Magic since 2007. My buddy in the Army taught me how to play. At the time, I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh! At a very, very high competitive level. In 2009, I top 16 4 different states in Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's when I retired, because I didn't make the Pro Tour in Ohio. I was one game out. Lost the 2 out of 3. I won a game, and then he won a game, and then the third game, I got him down to 100 life, and he beat me with an expensive card in the day. I don't know if it's super expensive still now, but he beat me with Crush Card Virus and Sandgin combo, and I was playing Hopeless Dragon, so like every card in my deck was strong, so he wiped me out. With 100 life, he came back and beat me, and I lost my chance to go be a pro Yu-Gi-Oh player by 100 freaking life, and I'm pissed off about it still. But after that, I transitioned to Magic, because my buddy in the Army taught me how to play in 2007. And originally, check this out. So originally, I was playing, my brother taught me how to play Magic in like 1995, 96 maybe? Early 90s. So like, early in the game, early in Magic's history. We had beta decks back then. We had beta starter decks, or beta like starter boxes or whatever, that we built decks out of. And because of my family, and like our religious beliefs from where my family came from, my stepmom had found these decks that we were playing, and I happened to have a black Magic deck at the time. So when she's like, oh, well, what is this? And she kind of like, she took them from us, and she, brought it up and was like, what the hell is this? Blah, 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 blah. And found out that we were playing a game called Magic, and she's like, oh, well, you're playing with black Magic? And she burnt them all and prayed over it, and poured like some sort of anointing oil or something on it and burned them all, and then prayed over it, and didn't allow me to play Magic the Gathering in the 90s. So even though I'm kind of an old head or whatever, right? Like I played other TCGs coming up for a long time, and it wasn't until 2007 when my buddy in the Army re-taught me how to play Magic. That guy was a Mormon, actually. He was a Mormon. He taught me how to play Magic. He also taught me how to play D&D. So, you know, that was something I learned in the Army. And the Magic just kind of stuck with me. When I got out, I, you know, kind of taught my other buddy how to play, and we got really deep into it for years. And then he opened card shops. And so it's been stuff that's been ingrained in us. I helped him run a card shop for a while. I helped him run events in Lansing, you know, before that guy retired and gave up his card shop. And then he moved and started a new card shop, and then he came back, and now he's got a new shop. He's got a new shop now. I haven't been there yet, but he just opened it up recently. So anyways, my point is I've got a really deep experience and history with TCGs and Magic in particular, and actual Magic, and having sympathy for the devil and playing the devil's advocate. So that's why I thought I kind of had I was in a unique position to take a stance and make this video about, you know, calling these guys out on this stuff, because we do have to thank them, right? Like I've said in the previous videos, we have to thank all these influencers for their effect on the game, for making the game mainstream, for it's not just a thing that, you know, like dorks and outcasts and pariahs play anymore. It's a mainstream game. Everybody plays it. I'm an athlete. I play it. You know, I'm a weird guy though. You know, I've got weird interests and hobbies, but I play it. And you know, all my friends who have more of a like athlete background that play it. And we're not all dorks or pariahs or outcasts, right? It's a mainstream thing, and a lot of people play, and a lot of people are vested interest. And you got these people that are in positions of, like, let's say power, I guess, not really, but they're in positions of influence over the game and over people, and their thoughts and what they get and what they digest and information that they receive about the game and the community. And they're in one voice, in one breath, condemning these threats and this harassment, saying, you guys suck, right? You guys suck. You're shitty people. You shouldn't be playing the game. You shouldn't be doing this. Even though we took thousands of dollars out of your pocket, or this decision took thousands of dollars out of your pocket, you don't have a right to be mad. You know, you don't have a right to be mad, but you do have a right to be mad, and it's these people's fault, not mine. And Wizards is like, oh, well, we can't stand for this. This is egregious. This is egregious. Right? Like they're freaking, like they're in Ballad of Ricky Bobby or something, and they're just getting bounced from freaking Applebee's. This is egregious. And they're throwing them under the bus too, right? They're just throwing them right under the bus, saying it's these people's fault, and they're the ones that made the decision. Now, with that in mind, that brings me back to the power bracket thing real quick. Now that I've been ranting for almost 20 minutes, and I've covered everything I wanted to cover up to this point about, you know, them playing the devil's advocate and throwing the rules committee under the bus, while in the same breath saying we got to protect these people. They've done a great job and all this stuff, but they made a fucked up mistake, and they fucked up, and it's their fault, not mine. That brings us back to the power level conversation, right? So I've already talked about on this channel about how they're going to probably take a lot of these cards that have been banned, and they're going to unban them. Because even in their announcement, they said they weren't going to make any future bans, so they weren't interested in banning more cards. But they didn't say any. They purposely left it open for unbannings. Now, if you guys are, you know, you guys play Commander, you are intrinsically involved in the game, you know what the ban list is, you know there's a bunch of cards that are banned, and you probably got a good idea. A lot of people have been covering this on what cards will probably be unbanned. Now, if you look at like the Magic Finance channels and stuff like that, they'll show you that a lot of these reserve list cards that shit are being bought up at a very high number, and some of these ban cards, the ban list itself is being bought up at record high numbers, because I'm not the only one saying this, because other people in the community believe this as well, and they have it from good authority that this is likely what they'll do, because Wizards has a vested interest, right? They want their business. They're going to make money off their reprint equity. So these cards that were banned that were a mistake, that they admit themselves might have been a design mistake, they still don't want it banned. Now, that gets me to this conversation. I went to my local LGS the other day, and I had a conversation with the dude who runs the local Discord around the Detroit area, and or the Metro Detroit area, right? And I had a great conversation with him as I was picking up some singles. And I talked to my favorite LGS that I go to, where I like to buy my singles and sealed product. I like to support the community. I don't buy a whole lot online. I buy some, a little bit online, but mostly I go card hunting, and I go to several different LGSs, and I try to pick this stuff up because I want to support the LGSs, because I don't want to see them die off, right? Like, I spent a lot of my life in LGSs, so I want to support them. And also, that's where I get some games and stuff in with some people, or I try to. It doesn't happen all that often at my own local LGS. I'm often building, decks and stuff and playing with my buddies when I'm around the Metro Detroit area or the Lansing area, but I regress nonetheless. So I had this conversation with him, with this guy at the local LGS that I like going to, and we started talking about this power bracket level structure and what we thought, kind of after we had digested through a couple weeks of the same thing, right, that we're talking about now, the ban list and the new meta and what WotC's going to do. And it kind of gives me this dun dun dun. Is that the Sword of Omens? Eye of Thundera. Give me sight beyond Aaron Forsythe, or Aaron Forsythe, or whatever the fuck his name is. Is the future commander going to be okay? Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be okay. So I'm talking to this guy about the future commander, right? And then what we think, and what we think WotC's going to do. And we're kind of come to the similar conclusions. The card shop owner didn't really think so. He's like, oh, well, Mana Crypt and all that stuff ain't going to be coming back for a while. And he's got all these local players that dropped all these crypts and stuff on him. And I bought a dockside off him, right, for $35. And he's got all these crypts and lotuses and stuff that the local players that came and dropped on him. And I think he's just kind of playing the devil's advocate himself, right? Because he don't want players to come rush in while the prices are still low and they're balancing out and they're rebounding, because Wizards took over, so these prices are rebounding. He wants to wait till they go back up, till the announcement is going back, so he can charge TCG player prices for these cards again, so these players come back and buy their own fucking card at a loss, at a huge loss, because they're buying them. They bought them off of players for what's 50% of the value, or 60% of the value that was already reduced to 50% of the value, and gave them store credit for it, right? So they can resell it for more than the original value. So that's what's happening at the LGS level. So some of these game stores are actually making out from this thing, this whole situation. Some of the games, if they're playing their cards right, they're actually making out. So I'm talking to this guy, and we're like, well, what are they going to do with the future commander? Dun, 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 right? So we agreed on a lot of things. We agreed that a lot of these cards are probably going to be unbanned. But we have an issue here. And they're going to, regulate cedh, right? So they're going to want to make it like structured and like a real format, right? Where they can have it sanctioned and have events, and Wizards can be in control of the events. And then they can, have prize pools and pro leagues and all this type of stuff. So he agreed with me, and other people joined in the conversation, and we kind of all agreed that that's something that WotC is going to want to do. But that brought us into this circle conversation where we kept going in circles here, because WotC is going to want to do that. They will capitalize off of that. But we have a problem here, because even if they take a lot of these cards off the ban list and say, well, these cards aren't banned, and cards like Armageddon, they're big salty cards, so we're going to stick these salty cards up in the 3 or 4, and cards like Rhystic Study and Smothering Tide, they're going to be like 3s, right, high power cards. But like cards like fetches, or not fetch lands, but like searchers, right? So like Vampiric Tutor, Demonic Tutor, Imperial Seal, etc., etc., etc. If they're at instant speed and everything, Personal Tutor's a 3. But if they're at instant speed and can search for any card, and they bring consistency and your power level way up, so those cards are going to be a 4. And fast mana cards are going to be a 4. And cards like Dockside would be a 4. And cards like Thoracle, like Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consultation combo will probably be a 4. That's cEDH win con. Not really like a 3 win con. You don't really see it in high power. Some people jamming that in there anyway, but in a high power combo deck, it's not cEDH. I'm not throwing Demonic Consultation, Thassa's Oracle in there. Most people aren't. I'm throwing that in my cEDH decks. There's no reason to have 15 different copies of that combo. You know, Tainted Pack and Demonic Consultation. There's no reason to have 15 different copies of that with Thoracle to jam in every freaking blue and black deck you got. So that's going to be like a 4, right? Where you got Smother and Tithe, the Ristic Study is going to be like a 3. And then, you know, you probably got like Mystic Remora, probably be like a 2, because it's got cumulative upkeep. And then like Esper Sentinel will probably be like a 2. And who knows where cards where like the One Ring is going to fit, a 2 or 3. Not really cEDH, but most cEDH decks probably want the One Ring. But it's not really like a cEDH stapley card. But like Fast Mana will probably be tier 4, right? So we're all kind of agreeing on what we think that they're going to do. So like Mox Diamond is probably going to be tier 4. Mox Opal will probably be a tier 3 or tier 4. Chrome Mox will probably be tier 3, tier 4. But then we started talking more about it, and we're like, well, what about cards like Time Twister? And we got the card shop owner, his attention on that particular side of the conversation that we were having. What about cards like Time Twister, where basically it's the same thing as a $10 card, and that, what is it, temporal mastery or whatever? It's like it's like the other 3-drop cards that cycle through your hand. So it's like Windfall or Wheel of Fortune or Dark Deal or whatever. I think it's the black one. So it's kind of like in the same ballpark as those cards. But he brings up this other card, and I think it's Temporal Mastery or whatever. It's the one with flashback. So it's got the Wheel of Fortune effect where you wheel your hand and you draw a new set of cards. But it has flashback, and you can use it in loops to continue to cycle your deck, to go through your deck. And decks like Nadu and stuff uses it. Other decks that churn through their whole deck and need to look for a win con, and let's say their win con's already in their graveyard, they need to shuffle their graveyard back into their library so they can churn through again to get back their win con that they had milled or already had to discard or whatever, right? And that's the same thing that Time Twister does. So Time Twister's a $10,000 fucking card. It's a $10,000 fucking card. But it goes in a lot of decks, right? It goes in a lot of cEDH decks. And as we're talking about what power level a card like Time Twister would go in, it's a power 9 card. But just because it's a power 9 card, is it really a power 4 cEDH only card? Probably not. Because then Windfall and all that probably won't be. So Windfall's like an $8 card or something like that, right? Maybe you can get it for cheaper nowadays. It's been reprinted. Even Dark Deal, I think, is a cheap card like that. But Wheel of Fortune isn't. Wheel of Fortune's still like a $500 card, and it's on the reserve list. So this brings up this conversation a little deeper, right? So what about the reserve list cards? If we're sanctioning cEDH, so this is where the circle comes in, right? And we're all talking amongst each other, trying to figure out, you know, Eye of Thundera, give me Sight Beyond Sight. Dun, 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 what's going to happen to the future commander? And we're trying to figure it out, and we're all sitting here talking. It's like a group of people. Me, this other guy is in charge of the Discord for Metro Detroit. Some other random people are around, and the shop owner is going back, filling orders. They're doing an event at the time. People are handing in lists, singles lists. People are buying cards like crazy. They got events going on, so a lot was going on at the time. And we're talking, and we're like, well, the cEDH community is growing larger and larger and larger. And one of the biggest things about cEDH is proxies, right? So we started talking about, should they have a second banned and restricted list? Well, they're definitely not doing that. But if they put cards at just tier 4, and they force the rule 0 conversation with these tiers and brackets, and people are like, well, I don't want to play against tier 4 cards, then you're going to have high power decks that don't have search cards in it. You're going to have high power decks that don't have fast mana, because they got to stay casual and be high powered. And when you put these cards in there, it automatically takes you to that bracket, right? So originally I thought, I watched a short from, what's Joe Johnson, I think is his name, guy from Tabletop Jocks, Black Vito, or whatever his name is called. I think he names himself after Magneto, not the actual black like card, but he tends to play a lot of black decks. He's a black guy, right? And he does his cookout show and all that stuff. But I like Joe. He's one of my favorite players in the community as well. And Johnson, I think his last name. And yeah, he did a short where I kind of thought that that's what it was. Like, well, you add up all the points in your deck, and if you got a bunch of tier 4 cards and some tier 5 cards, maybe that a cedh deck's going to be like over 400 points. But that's not right. It's not like that. It's just these in particular, most cards are just going to be a 1. So if most cards are like a 1, because Swords of Plowshares is a 1, that's the best removal card, individual like removal you can get. So pretty much all removal is going to be a 1, and you know, if you got a Titan as a 1, you can manipulate the hell out of that by blinking it, recurring it, bring it back from the graveyard, etc., etc. Then pretty much all creatures, big Timmy style creatures, are going to be 1s. So does that mean like Combo or Storm and all these archetypes are going to exist in another tier above Timmy decks? Even if you're abusing these ETBs and stuff like that, is that what that means? We don't really know. So no one really can see the future of what's going to happen with Commander. No one really knows, but we all kind of got like a cumulative idea, right? Where we think that this was going to happen a certain kind of way, and that when it does happen, it's going to trigger this domino effect across the community. And when they sanction cedh, make it a real format, and we know that they don't want proxies to be played in tournament, but they're not super against proxies because of Magic 30, so they can make proxies and charge you $250 a pack and reprint cards from the reserve list that aren't legal in tournaments. But what are they going to do if they sanction cedh? Are they going to say no proxies? Because if they do, it'll destroy the community. It'll be like Legacy. And that's the conversation we're having here. It's like, well, we know that the cedh community has to have proxies. Now, I play cedh and I don't proxy shit. So if I don't have a $10,000 card, I'm not playing it. I don't have a Mox Diamond or a Wheel of Fortune or whatever. And just because I want to build decks that have those effects, I just find other ways to kind of do it, right? Like, so in my Wheels deck, I'm using Teferi's Puzzle Box, I'm using Windfall, and I'm not using Time Twister, and I'm using Dark Deal, and cards like that. And if other people want to do it, then they can do it. And if I'm using Red in the deck, maybe I'll use Wheel of Misfortune, which is, people hate that card. But, you know, you guys get what I'm saying. Is I personally don't use proxies, but the cedh community generally accepts proxies, and the tournaments are relying off proxies. So if everybody doesn't proxy, then the 1 or 2 people that actually have a Gaia's Cradle, they're going to probably be able to win more often than not, which makes the rich richer, and they're going to win all the prizes and all the cool cards and all this stuff. But what if is there a world in cedh where Wizards decides, oh, well, if we want to get the full value out of the community that plays cedh, because I play both, right? Like, I play casual and cedh. But if they want to get the full value out of the cedh side, and they say, well, proxies aren't going to be allowed in tournaments, it's going to domino and just take half the community out, because everybody proxies their decks. Are they then going to reprint fucking reserve list cards again in a way where they say, well, these aren't reprints, even though they said they were never going to do that, and they did it anyway? They're never going to do it in an official card, sleeve size, gold back or not. They were never going to do it, and they did it anyway. So if they can do it anyway for a cash grab and charge people $250 a pack, $1,000 for a box, what's to stop them from putting these reserve list staples that are, cedh staples that are on the reserve list? What's to stop them from reprinting these cards and putting them in like some cedh exclusive pack where you can get a gold border Gaia's Cradle or something like that, right? That they can then break their rules and say, well, We don't believe in proxies and tournament play for legacy because people don't really play that. You got to have a $15,000 deck. But these $10,000, $15,000 commander decks, though, we want them to be able to play cedh and not have to proxy. So let's make these packs and let's sell them to you for hundreds of dollars for these packs that have like reserve list cards reprinted in them, you know, like Mox Diamonds and Time Twisters and Gaia's Cradles and stuff like that. So that's kind of the conversation we were in, and it took ourselves in a circle because people were like, no, they'll never do that. It's like, will they or won't they? Because Magic 30 told us that they will do that, and they will say, well, they're not tournament legal. But when they look at the monster that is EDH and cedh in the future commander, and they're unbanning these cards, and they can't make money off of these reserve list cards that people desperately need, or they can't play their deck in tournaments, is it just going to destroy the community? Or will these card shops and places that hold these tournaments and events do their own thing? Or is Magic going to try and sanction it and force their hand and say, well, if you're running these tournaments, they're going to be Magic sanctioned tournaments, sanctioned by Wotc, and they got to follow these particular set of rules. And oh, you need these proxies? You need these cards that you don't have access to? Well, you better go out and fucking buy them. But if you buy them, you're buying them from the secondary market. Wotc doesn't pay any attention to what happens in the secondary market, now does it? It certainly fucking does, no matter what they say. They certainly fucking do, because they're playing the devil's advocate. They're not just saying, oh, well, we had to take control because they're harassing these people. They're saying, it's these people's fault, it's not ours. It's not our fault that fucking Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus got banned. They were design mistakes. Well, not so much Mana Crypt, because it's been around for 20-something years or whatever. But design mistakes, but we still want to make money off them. We still want to resell you these cards in future packs. So what are they going to do, guys? Are they going to reprint more reserve list? Are they going to make a cedh pack where they've got reserve list cards that people need? Are they going to proxy these cards? Are they going to say proxies are okay in tournaments? What's going to happen? And that's kind of where we're at now, where we're in this circle in the community, where we generally believe that they will take these cards off the ban list. They're going to take a bunch of cards off the ban list. They're going to say, okay, well, if they're of this such and such a power, we didn't agree with it. That was their thing. It was their thing. Now, don't harass them or nothing. Don't threaten them or harass them. But it's their fault. It was their thing. Now that we have control, we want to be on your guys' side. We want to play the devil's advocate, and we want to have sympathy for the devil. And we want to make a bunch of money, right? We want to make a bunch of money. So I think that's all I got. That's my thoughts. I don't intend on making any more videos about this subject unless more things come up, right? Like the main reason why I made this video was because I don't feel like I had like a real introduction. I might have did something like that in my Thunder Junction pack opening or whatever, but I don't think I really did a full introduction to say where this channel came from and how it just became a channel. Because I'm not really getting very many views, but I've got followers and stuff, right? Like I've got subs and I've got videos that have views, and we're trying to push this Magic thing because Magic's a big part of my life, and I love Magic, not just a card game, right? Like so that's where I'm at. That's my thoughts, and I just did this video because more things came to light, right? Like the Command Zone did their video, Rachel Weeks, damn yous all to hell. And Jimmy and Josh Lee Kwai and them, and they had their thoughts on it, and they're playing the devil's advocate. And Wotc did their video with Aaron Forsythe, give me sight beyond Aaron Forsythe, Thundercats Ho, and Gavin Verhey, and they did the same thing. They said it's their fault. We had design mistakes, and it's their fault, and we're gonna fix it. And blasey swoop. So I'm not going to be making another video or coming out with more thoughts because we're in this circle pattern right now of trying to digest information and figure out where things are going to go. We're all just kind of guessing until after what, Command Zone or what do they call it? Like Command Fest or MagicCon Vegas, whatever the next con is. The end of the month, MagicCon Vegas, I think. So I won't be doing another video about this subject or Magic, other than maybe pack openings, etc., until after MagicCon Vegas. So that's it for me, guys. Peace out.